Tuesday evening, and it's just gone past 6 p.m. This is the spiritual discussion program. I'm Saad in southeast London, and very shortly my colleague Gregory will be joining us. Hope you're keeping well. I am Saad. I'm in southeast London in Bromley, and here the weather has been quite hot, 30 degrees. And let's say not really much of a breeze. So now my colleague Gregory's joined us. Welcome, Gregory. How are you doing, and how is the weather where you are?
Well, one is fine. Weather is hot, but not too hot.
Okay. And yes, listeners, this program, spiritual discussion program, the aim is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Aprushin. And we have a topic every week for discussion. The topic for tonight is awake and become seen. Awake and become seen. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079. In fact, I'll begin with a prefix, so it's +44 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'll just repeat the number. So it's +44 79 39 641 958. You can also contact us on the website where we are broadcasting, which is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down to sort of almost the bottom of the page, on the home page, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you'll be able to send any message with any questions or comments. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Aprushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the readers again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. And I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Aprushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for discussion tonight is awake and become seen. Awake and become seen. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number. I'm going to give it with a prefix, so anybody abroad, outside of UK, can also contact us. It is +44 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. I'm going to begin with looking up the words of the topic in the dictionary. So the first word we have is awake, and the meaning I found there is not sleeping, being conscious, or becoming alert and aware. So let me repeat that. So this word awake, it is not sleeping, being conscious, becoming alert and aware. Gregory, how's this meaning for our discussion for the word awake?
All of the expressions you used are applicable.
Okay, very good. That's nice to know from the dictionary. This is, let's say, one of the few times when we like the meaning there. Okay. The next word I have looked up is become. To start to be something. To grow into a new state. I'm going to just stop there. So Gregory, I'm going to ask you again, if you can focus on these words, the meaning of become. It is to start to be something, to grow into a new state. How is the meaning there?
Intuitively, new state or change of state seems nearest.
Very good, very good. As it looks like we're getting good definition here. Now the last word I checked is seeing, and my goodness, there's so many, how can I say, meanings given here. So we go slowly. I'm trying to see if I can just pick a few rather than, because I've got about 10 different meanings for the word seeing. So the first one I have, perceiving by the sight, by the eye, or sight. So perceiving by the eye or sight. How's this one, Gregory?
This is part of it. Is usable.
Okay, that's probably why we need to go through each of these words, meanings. The second one I have, again for the word seeing, the meaning of the word seeing, it says becoming aware, recognizing. How's that?
Again, very good and usable.
Okay, that's very nice. Third one, again, I just keep repeating just in case somebody is joining us. So seeing, this third meaning is given as imagining as a possibility. How's this one?
Although it's okay, but it's a bit remote compared to the first two.
Fine. I will continue. The fourth meaning I have for the word seeing, it's forming a mental picture, visualizing. How's this one?
Visualizing seems okay.
Okay, good, good. Fifth meaning now on this word seeing, it says become knowing, discovery. How's this one?
Again, all these are expressions which come near to that expression seeing.
That's good. I'm happy. I'm happy that we are having good definitions, and as you said, that each one of these meanings seems helpful to get because it covers a wide area. So let's continue. Now I have number 6 here for the meaning of seeing. It says having experience of or undergoing. How's this one now?
It's like we said, it's there. It's very useful.
Okay, we're getting. I'm just happy that we are having good definitions. The next one is number 7. Again, looking up the meaning of seeing. It says examining or watching.
Watching is close.
Okay. And the other ones, I will say it anyway. Seeing, it says making sure of or providing for. So making sure of or providing for.
Yeah, these ones can still be utilized depending on the perspective.
Okay, and I've got 2 more left, which is judging, seeing it meaning judging. Yes, that one. How's that one, Gregory?
Not very close to what we need to Jews.
Okay, and the last one, I think this one is, let's say, not really relevant, but anyway, I would say number 10 for the meaning of seeing, it says visiting.
Not really.
Okay, let's, yeah, because they're a bit, as you said, they do regards in a context, and in most contexts we won't talk it that way. Right. So, what do I want to talk next? Okay. So, Gregory, I mean, I know this might sound very basic, but let's start from there. It said, I want to ask you, how do we see? Is it with our minds? Eyes, or our mind?
The eyes are channels to pass information or visual information to the person, to the individual. That is how we see.
Okay, that's good. And you know, in one of the definition of seeing, we said visualizing, which it's doesn't mean that you're seeing that because say physically you are seeing that. It's like, well, almost like the word I was thinking of imagining, but
Correct.
yeah. So you know, it's like picturing something
Yeah.
in your mind. Let me say like that. Picturing it in your mind. Could that be considered seeing as well?
Yes, indirectly.
Okay. I mean, this is a very broad word. That's and the thing is, I know our aim is to understand things from the spiritual angle, and what the reasons I keep wanting to go to the dictionary when we start a discussion is to get the concept clear, that we are all on the same page. But with this concept of seeing, it's like such a wide ranging, how can I say, area that looks like we have to cover a lot of understand this in a wide way. Now, okay. Now, Gregory, again, I'm going to look from the physical uh, sort of point of view in terms of seeing. And as we know, and listeners, you will know too, there's something we know called magic, which is supposed to be illusions. In the sense the magician does some, let's say, trick where we are deceived by what we are seeing. Um, so now, and yet what the magician is doing, it's real in the sense that he's achieving something, um, but it somehow, let's say, the way he shows it to us, we can be deceived by it. So um, let me think of an example so that people can, be clear about what I'm saying. So there's one like famous trick where the magician will have a lady put in a coffin or some sort of box, and then he'll use a saw and cut the lady in half. At least it'll appear to be so. And then, I know he'll do it a bit in a dramatic way that the lady is moving her hands and different parts of the body that are moving, so you can see that the person is still alive while they're being sawed. So, but obviously this is an illusion or deception, and yet, so what I'm pointing to, Gregory, can we believe whatever we see to be really true or real, because it appears that there are some occasions, where we might be deceived by our eyes, so how can we be sure, can we trust, let me say, can we trust what we see with our eyes? Let me say it that way.
That should not be the case. A very simple example of if you have a glass of water, a transparent glass of water, and you put a pencil inside, look from the outside, you'll find that the pencil looks bent.
Right.
Many people have experienced that, but when you now take out the pencil, you find it's not bent.
That's right.
So this is what many have experienced, and so everything must be examined, must be weighed and examined. So that which you see, that will have to be interpreted by the individual. The simple case which one just gave, in which you have a pencil or a pen in a glass of a transparent glass of water, which you see bent. When you put your hand in there, you'll find that the pencil or pen or the meter rule is not bent. It's still the same thing. So it is a refraction that has caused all those things, bending of light. So everything that man experiences must be examined by the individual, must be weighed by the individual.
Thank you for that answer, Gregory. So we have, so seeing, we cannot just assume seeing is believing, because it has to be examined, and then like sort of verified.
Correct.
Okay. Yes.
Verified is the most appropriate.
Okay. Okay. Now, going back, taking back, let's go back to the topic for tonight, the title of the topic, which is Awake and Become Seeing. And I'm sure listeners and everyone, when we pick this topic, I'm thinking, nobody's thinking, oh, I'm waking up from sleep, and then I suddenly start seeing with my eyes, because I became, from sleep, awake from sleep. It has a different meaning to that. Although it could apply from the topic title, but we obviously refer to something more than that. So I want to go there. Up to now, we've looked at like the physical seeing, and obviously this is a spiritual program. So there must be a spiritual meaning of being awake and become seeing. So, in a way, Gregory, I would like to define what is spiritual. So, what is, how can I say, being awake in a spiritual sense and become seeing in the spiritual sense?
Awake or awakeness is synonymous or equivalent to, one wouldn't want to use the word awake, it's equivalent to consciousness. To be conscious means to be awake. So the state of consciousness of the environment, consciousness of what is around you, consciousness, if possible, of what is within you, of your thinking, of so generally awake means to be conscious. And that is the nearest for the tools that needs to transmit information here on earth. One is referring to the five senses. Once you open your eyes in the morning, you see you are awake. You are conscious. If one is unable to see, but is able to hear, and that person is blind, that person is still awake. So you find that it is consciousness which encapsulates. That's a state of consciousness that is the nearest or the most appropriate when spirituality is concerned.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this, I would say, picture that you're painting in, about this, but when we refer to being awake or becomes seeing, that is referring to consciousness, which, yes, which of course we know about our sleep, earthly sleeping, and that's when we wake up our eyes, that's when we come to our consciousness. Yes, again, that is in the physical sense. But as you said, Gregory, we have those five senses, physical senses. So even if you can't see with your eyes, you have your other four senses: smell, hearing, touch, and I forget one of them. Yes. So yes. Okay. Okay. Now. So, Gregory, you may have said this already. So that consciousness, how can I say, is that just there's a physical consciousness that we are aware of, becoming awake, you can say, and then there's a spiritual consciousness as well. So where I'm going to, Gregory, is there another sense? Do we have spiritual eyes? Let me say like that. Do we have spiritual eyes which are not the physical eyes?
Of course.
Okay.
When spiritual eyes or spiritual consciousness is referred to, the tool that does the transmission, which encapsulates everything, is one's intuition. So, when the human personality has discarded the physical body that is using here on earth, only the intuition becomes that sense, that tool that it uses to communicate with others outside of itself. And that becomes profound because that is the world it now lives in.
Thank you for that. The intuition is with the spiritual sense. Now, you mentioned that that's when we depart, meaning die on this earth. That's when the spiritual sense is, how can I say, active. I just want to clarify that when we are on this earth, there's the spiritual sense, is it like still there, and is it operating maybe on a lower level than compared to when we die?
The spiritual sense, the intuition has always been there. The problem is, unless one is aware that this impression is that which has arisen from out of the spirit, then there is a huge challenge for that individual. Therefore, one would say that that which is referred to as one's intuition, that is the impression or the expression of the spirit, which expression will have to be translated to the conceptions of space and time here on earth. That means the local experiencing, whereas that which is of spirit, that which is intuitive, is not bound as such to the local interpretation of the expressions which abound in the earthly. It is much more inclusive, it's much more vibrant, it communicates more, whereas here on earth things have been narrowed down.
Thank you so much, Gregory, for distinguishing this intuition in comparison, you could say, with our earthly senses, which are, as you said, narrowed down compared to this intuition. So that's a very important point to be aware of, to understand. So we're going to explore that in a moment as we continue the discussion. I just want to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of this show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uprishin. And if you wish to know more about the Grail message, or if you wish to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is awake and become seen. Awake and become seen. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is +44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is Bless Radio 1, that's the number one, .com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number one, space, Grail message, space, the topic which is awake and become seen. And when the show ends, which is 8 p.m. UK time, you can go to youtube.com, yes, and type in the search box the same words, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number one, space, Grail message, space, awake and become seen. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/radio/Bless Radio 1, that's the number one. Now, Gregory, you've given a pointer that our earthly senses, the five senses, physical senses, smell, hear, and my brain is already going blank, see, of course, and feel with your hands and such. Those are at least 4 out of the 5. They are the physical senses, and they are a bit, let's say, limited in their perception, and they work only in the earthly, that's why we're calling them earthly senses. Then we have this intuition, which is spiritual, which has a wider range of perception. Now, first, Gregory, I know we said this at the beginning of the show. We know that these 5 senses, let's say, they could be deceived or tricked into seeing something or sensing something which is not so real, and so we must examine what we are seeing or what we are feeling whenever we are using these senses, because as we know, things can be deceived. And you gave the example of putting a pencil in a glass of water and looking at it, and then you see, oh, it might be bent. You look bent from one angle, and then you think, okay, you might believe that is bent. However, when you withdraw the pencil out of the water, you can see it's still the same, it's completely straight. And so that must be a visual, how can I say, don't use the word trick, but visual perception that is not, there's something interfering, you could say, there that we don't. Gregory, how would you say that when we put the
visual happening?
Yes, it's just
visual phenomena.
Visual phenomena. Yes, that sounds because what you're seeing is still some sort of reality, just it's not the true reality, because you couldn't say, oh, the pencil is not bent when you look in the water, through the water. It is showing as if it is bent. However, there's something like a phenomena, as you've said, which makes it look that way. Because when you withdraw the pencil back out of the water, it's completely straight, and you know that nothing's happened to the pencil. And obviously the water doesn't bend the pencil. It's just the way it appears. So you could say in the air, pencil is straight, and then when you put it into water, maybe there's something happening with the medium of water that causes it to look like that. So this is where I'm going now. So Gregory, So we're not saying there's some deception in the sense of somebody uh, not showing the reality. What you see is that, how can I say, that's how it looks. That's what we're calling it. That's how you see it. That's what you see. And of course we are saying none of everything's working fine. Your eyes are fine. The pencil is fine. The water is fine. So there's nothing wrong with those um, items. Now let's go to the intuitive perception or intuition. Can that, Gregory, when you put it in quotes in different mediums, be, how can I say, can I use the word, there's a word you said, let me say it another way, distorted, let me say like that. Could your intuitive perception, by being applied in different mediums, be distorted, or maybe the distorted is too strong a word, but not show it the full reality, let me say like that.
The impression which the individual gathers when it is using its intuition, that impression also has a dealing with the environment. And that being the case, you will find that the individual maturity also come into question. And these have an impact on how the individual experiences. Whereas here on earth, when one is referring to the five senses, in the case of one's vision, you see it bent. Strictly, what one is referring to by the visual sense, that is only a channel. Which channel passes information to the brain. And in that particular case, you find that there is an interpretation. One can give a very simple example to illustrate how these things are. A very simple example one would use is, you can imagine a carpenter working on a roof and driving nails into timber from a distance. You can see the hammer hitting the nail, but the sound which you get comes a bit later. So for many, they will say there is a difference between the time that nail is hit and the impression that the individual gathers when it sees the hammer striking the nail. But in one's measurement, when one evaluates it, you find these happen at the same time. There is no difference. Only that the sound travels slower as compared to that which is the visual one. So if you look back also in the case of the pencil that looks bent, which strictly speaking is not bent, the medium has an impact. It is that medium that gives, in quotes, that distortion or that delay Whereas that which is visual, that which is intuitive, depending on the maturity of the individual, it's able to interpret the impressions very quickly, learn from it, and move on. One can also stress that even in the beyond, you will find for those who are closer to their origin, depending on the maturity of the individual, who are closer to their origin in paradise, their experiencing is much faster than the experiencing which they have here on earth. Again, you have expression that 1,000 years are as one day, which basically means the experiences which the spirit undergoes in one earth day, or the experiences which it undergoes, to have the same quality of experience here on earth, to take 1,000 years. All this depends on the swiftness of experiences. That which is intuitive is swifter, is more general. It brings the impressions very quickly. Whereas here on earth, those impressions have been broken down into 5: of smell, of touch, one of the 5 broken down into 5 senses.
Yes.
Of hearing.
I'm just going to make sure we have them in our head.
Yeah.
I'm just going to find them so that we don't have to try and remember each time. One moment. There we go. It's sight, hearing,
Yes.
smell, taste, and touch.
Taste and touch.
Okay, so I'm going to keep that.
Yeah.
Go.
You should hold it. So you find that it is broken down. Whereas in the case of the intuition, because of the swiftness, everything is, it encompasses all this. So when one sees something through one's intuition, one can also have the smell of it. Or if you're able to perceive roses, right? You see roses, maybe in your dream. You also perceive the odor or the aroma of roses.
Fragrance. Yeah.
The fragrance of roses. So, yes, the environment in which the individual is present, that has an impact on how that individual absorbs this information. And secondly, the maturity of the individual also come into play. The more matured the individual is, maturity, spiritual maturity, in accordance with the laws of creation, in which is able to perceive very quickly, the more is able to interpret that information that has reached it, and the richer it is.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this explanation, which is quite a lot to be aware, to know about this. So just to, if I could summarize what you were saying there. So yes, on Earth we have the 5 physical senses, which I'm going to confirm, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. And there are 5 physical organs, obviously, that go with each of those senses to work with, to pick up those senses. Then we've talked about the intuition, which is a spiritual sense, which is comprehensive in the sense these, first of all, it doesn't, let's say it works also in this earthly world, even though it is not earthly. That's something important to know. It's actually spiritual, which is non-earthly, and yet it also is able to sense in the earthly, and it because let's say it's a higher sense. It is so it's not like with the, let's say with the ear you only hear, you can't see with the ear, but with this intuition, all this records 5 different aspects of senses side, which has a, let's say, higher point of view than the earthly point of view. The way I could give an example of that is, imagine that we have an aura. Now people might say, oh, what is an aura? So imagine that a radiation around you. So let's say you are thinking something. Let it say it is something that you are going to, something evil. I'm just going to say something like that, where your thoughts are directed in this some evil volition, a wish, something like that. You have a thought of committing evil. Now, I know we can't see the thoughts. However, with this intuition, you can sense. And when I refer to the word aura, it is that sensing of that aura of the person that you are able to pick up with the intuition, which you cannot pick up with those 5 physical senses. So this is how you can see quite the intuition works on a higher level.
Right.
Now, it doesn't mean Gregory, I can tell you what you are thinking just because I have a very sharp intuition or I'm a very mature human being. It doesn't mean that I can do that. However, I can sense if you a vibration, you can say, of that. If then once it's put out, of course, once a thought has been produced, then you have a sensing of that, and that's the intuition doing this sensing, and which is, you could say, a spiritual perspective, which you could never see that from, you could never notice that from the earthly. So this is quite, and hopefully I put it in a way example where it is really a real thing. Somebody can really say, okay, even if they don't know much about the intuition, they can picture that scenario that yes, okay, this intuition is capable of doing this, which actually what we would say is, when you use your intuition and practice using the intuition, that these things will become, you will detect these things. But first we need to just give a picture of what it is, how it works. Now, okay, and I just want to, sorry, I was going to summarize what you were saying. So we were saying the question was about when we have look with the eyes, a pencil in water, and then we look through into the glass of water, we see that pencil is bent. But of course we know when you pull the pencil out, it's definitely not bent, it is straight. So my question was the intuition also affected by the medium that we are looking through, or what? And the answer was, well, it depends also on, yes, there's a bit of the thing about medium, but really there's another angle, which is the maturity of that person.
Right.
And sure, so that is, every human being is different, so there's no chance of 2 people having the same maturity. There'll always be one a little bit above, one maybe below, and some it could be matching the same maturity. But I mean, when there's millions of us, even billions of us, of course there's likelihood of somebody on a very similar level to you, but even there might be slight difference. So the point is, this level of maturity is involved in your intuitive perception. So that's quite a factor. And the higher the maturity, the higher level of your intuition is. You're able to detect the reality, let's say. Now, it's getting very, how can I say, detailed here. But any case, hopefully we're going slowly but surely. Now you are able to follow us, listeners. Now, so let me go to something more general, listeners. Um, Now, we have this intuition on the earth, uh, while the other five senses, physical senses, they are not able to work outside of the physical. So that's another point to note. Now, um, now Gregory, let's go to the purpose of these senses. So from the physical five senses, of course we can say that they're needed to work on this earth, to operate on this earth. But then with this intuition, which is not earthly but is spiritual, so that is also acting in the earthly level while we're on this earth. So what will be the purpose of the intuition, Gregory, while we are on this earth?
When one examines it carefully, the spirit which needs to communicate with the dense earthly body, that communications comes through from the back brain, then that information is translated to the local impressions, local variations of the earthly space and the earthly time. So it is that locality that one is referring to here. So you find if it is not translated to the local concept of space and time, then when one perceives something intuitively, you do not know when it's going to manifest here on earth. Whereas that which is perceived needs to be narrowed down, because it is the frontal brain which needs to execute these impressions. That means the impressions which have come from the back brain need to be interpreted, need to be transmitted, so that it will make sense to the frontal brain, which becomes like the chief executive. That is the purpose of the frontal brain. If, however, you have the scenario where the frontal brain does not interpret it correctly, or where you have that the individual has experienced something externally and passes it through to the frontal brain, which is now supposed to pass that experience to the back brain. If it's unable to do that, then it means that you have a truncation. That experience which the spirit needs in order to mature, to know to a large extent about the earthly, about what is happening on earth, that knowledge becomes elusive to the spirit because it lacks the experience. It is the experience that the spirit needs. Why? Because it needs to mature such that if it needs to help people here on earth. It needs to know what the experiences they are going through. But if it lacks the experience of what they are going through, how can it help? A simple example is if you want to help somebody to learn a language, should you yourself not understand language first? If you don't have any idea about the language, how can you then teach the language? Another very simple example is the case of music. How can you teach somebody how to play the guitar when you yourself you don't have an idea what it's all about? Only through the experience, which experience has been registered in spirit, only that become of use, become of value, that the spirit can use to mature and then subsequently to be of use to others.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this. Again, the picture you painted for us, giving us the process of how, well, the purpose really of the intuition. So, when we are living on this earth, let's say many of us think, oh, it's about, starting, let's say, a child growing up, getting educated, getting a job, having family, whatever. That's the earthly life that we are familiar with. Okay, which is, let's say, pretty much every human being is aware of that sort of journey. But then there's a spiritual perspective in living your life earthly. Otherwise, you could say it was just a robot can do the same thing, but not really, I know. But is it all about, having the next generation continue and, is that all there is, this earth life? With the spiritual perspective, once now can see that there's some meaning behind this life, more than just like the continuing the life into the next generation, you could say. And so that is coming from the intuition, which is the spirit, the voice of our spirit, and which gives let's say higher perspective. Now, where, for example, you get one of the things that the spiritual, let's say, I've forgotten the words for it now, but let's say one of the noble goals that we have is to help a fellow human being. It's not, and that way would not be, let's say, very obvious through this simply earth life. You could just say, no, I live for my own family, and that's it. But once you have a spiritual perspective, you can say, no, that's a fellow human being. He is, in a way, part of my family, even if he's not directly my family. So helping that fellow human being is also, although you don't gain, of course, materially from it, as some people might think that is the aim of life. No, you don't, yes, but there's some happiness coming from it, which is obviously not something material. Happiness is outside of this material world. So yes, we do get happy. Maybe we enjoy eating some nice food. Yes, but that is just a temporary thing. There's something deeper when you help another fellow human being. So that's where we are going here, looking at the spiritual side, angle, and perspective of life. Now, before I continue any further, I just want to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Uprushing. If you wish to know more about the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is awake and become seen. Awake and become seen. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is I'm going to give the prefix for which is +44 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is Bless Radio 1. That's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, number 1 there, space, Grail message, space, the topic of the show, which tonight is awake and become seen. And after the show ends, which is 8 p.m. UK time, you can do a recording of the show also on YouTube. You type the same words in the text search box, okay, and that is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space, Grail message, space, awake and become seen. And of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.fm/radio/Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1. Now, I've been receiving some messages from my colleague Mrs. Harriet Hoppe, who helps us with the questions. So I'm going to put them now. Let's see. Yes, it says, in a world of constant distraction, of endless drivel and manipulation, how can one keep head above water, one's eye on what is truly necessary to help the spirit unfold its full potential? I'm going to read that again. So this is let me just repeat that. In a world of constant distraction, of endless drivel and manipulation, how can one keep one head above water, one's eye on what is truly necessary to help the spirit unfold its full potential? So Gregory, please, can you say something on that?
Oh, thanks very much for that particular question. There are always distractions. For what an individual opens itself to, in all earnestness, what that individual then experiences belongs to it alone. however, you have an individual who is genuinely seeking, filled with good volition, filled with pure volition in accordance with the laws of nature, of creation. That in itself helps the individual to filter that which is not genuine. Therefore, you find, having gone through the grinding stone, and that individual becomes open, genuinely, its vibration will be such that is able to receive those noble, those blessed vibrations which are out there, radiated by those who are more mature than he himself or herself. Therefore, for any individual who does not wish to be distracted, that individual must strive after good volition. That individual must keep the heart of his thoughts pure. Why purity of thoughts? It means, or that only implies, that if one considers, take for instance, you want to listen to a radio channel. Long time ago, when you are tuning it, sometimes it makes some noise. If I remember those days in BBC, if it's not tuned, it makes some destructive noise. But when it is tuned, you find that the energy from out there now vibrates in harmony, and you're able to receive the waves which have been sent out through that particular frequency. What is being stressed here is that whoever that doesn't wish to be distracted must strive to harbor good thoughts, good volition, pure volition, and in its simplicity, that individual will be driven from one place to another where it is able to perceive in simplicity. That means, or it doesn't mean that because you have been driven from one place to the other, it's going to be palatable. Many a time, the individual needs to go a thorough grinding such that the wrong impressions it has held all this while are dropped, are severed from it. And that being the case, it means it does not resonate with the distractions. And it will become a center where it's able to perceive of the beneficial radiations that it needs in accordance with the laws of creation.
Thanks again, Gregory, for this answer and again the picture you painted for us. Let me continue with another I think this is more of a point rather than a question again from Mrs. Hoppe. This says, yes, there are manifold avenues one can meander down, that one can spend a lifetime and 10, tasting the fruits thereof. But what truly quenches the deep inner thirst? To know why nothing of this world ever fills one's spirit to the brim with overflowing joy, peace, and serenity. So let me repeat that. I think this is a comment, not a comment, yeah, it's a point, a comment, rather than a question. But maybe, let me repeat it again, and maybe you can say a few words. So, yes, there are manifold avenues one can meander down, that one can spend a lifetime and 10, tasting the fruits thereof. But what truly quenches the deep inner thirst? To know why nothing of this world ever fills one's spirit to the brim with overflowing joy, peace, and serenity. Now, I hope, Gregory, you were able to follow that.
Yes, I am. And
yes.
once you started reading, one's attention flew to the expressions of Jesus. And when he said, love thy neighbor as thyself, and those around him could not understand. And they went further, which was fair enough, in which they asked, and who is my neighbor? And being whom he is, filled with patience and perseverance, he went further to give the example of someone who fell into the midst of robbers, was beaten, injured, and a priest came, went this way, a Levite came, went the other way. Then came someone who is not a priest, is not a Levite, but who took care of the wounds and helped that person out. And then he asked them, of these, who is his neighbor? Of course they all understood. And he told them, go thee and do likewise. That became very clear to them. So you will find in all activities, which is part of what is being stressed here in this forum, one for all and all for one. People have to get into activities. Every individual has a challenge. Every individual has the possibility of being distracted. That in itself is a fact. However, there are other individuals who, in their activities, put these other individuals who have been distracted, who have been challenged in mind, and are all to look out to be of assistance. It doesn't have to come with goods. It may also come with a kind word, which grants the other individual the opportunity to reflect. It may be, other than a kind word, it may be also a rough word, that helps to prevent another from falling into a scenario which becomes detrimental to it. So, the words, the expressions of Christ are very pertinent here, for subsequently they bring joy and happiness to the individual who harbors goodwill.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this reflection, you can say, on or presenting this story of Jesus, the parable there. Yes. Let me go to another question or point that Mr. Hoppe is making. So it says, there must be in the Almighty's plan for humanity more to find. We do, after all, have His commandments to guide us in staying awake, if we would become seeing. But who among us either truly know or understand them? Let me repeat that. There must be in the Almighty's plan for humanity be more to find. We do, after all, have His commandments to guide us in staying awake, if we would become seeing. But who among us either truly knows or understands them? Yes, Gregory, is there anything you'd say to that? Or
There is the talk of a plan. There is the expression of sin. However, sin, more or like it's been described, sin is believing. But that is not the case until belief becomes conviction. And conviction only materializes when there is the inflexible weighing and examining. Only then, when things have been weighed and examined in accordance with the living laws of creation, only then do we have conviction. So, it is conviction that counts. It is the conviction which the Spirit takes away that is of value. Without that conviction which should be of value, the Spirit still remains immature. Immature in the sense that it's almost not awake. For it is not awakenness that really counts, which is consciousness. The spirit must become self-conscious. So there is a difference between consciousness of the environment and consciousness or the self-consciousness of the human spirit. That self-consciousness of the human spirit lies in the personal conviction it has acquired through diligent efforts.
thanks a lot again, Gregory, for this answer. We're really going deeper in our understanding of this concept of being awake and seeing. Uh, yeah, the words are simple, awake and seeing, and yet the level of depth where one can appreciate what experience that people have uh, can be quite deep, or it's really, you wouldn't maybe consider that that can be the case. That yes, there's let's say levels of understanding, um, and of course, people could say, oh yes, of course we know that because people go to school and then some of them leave school and start a job, whatever the job might be, and then some will carry on doing the furthest higher education, they call it, going to maybe even university, and then getting some, let's say, some job from that, which the people may call, oh, that's somebody very intelligent, because he's able to become, go to university or go to a higher level, even reach a professor, something like that. While somebody else who didn't do that might be considered, let's say, in the human opinion, oh, not so advanced or in that way. But that's really not how this, when we talk about spiritual maturity, there's not a university level degree that you need to have. No, it's individual, as you said correctly, individual. And it has no relation to your earthly education. Because people might think, oh, okay, maybe this is not for everybody. No, it's not about that. It's about only your spirit, your using spiritual ability, which is the intuition.
May I give you another example?
Yes, please.
You find in the case of music, how many of the musicians that you have out there have been to the university to learn to play the drums, or to learn to play the guitar, or to learn to play the harmonica? A lot of these who are now either conductors or playing some instrument, or some who just sing in the opera. These are personal efforts, the gifts which they have come with. They have allowed these gifts to have an expression. They have given expression to this particular gift, and therefore they are able to express that which lies deep within them. They didn't need to go to a university or to become a professor or to have a PhD. No, far from it. This is something which is intrinsic, which through their personal efforts they have developed so as to be able to be of value to fellow human personalities who, like him, are striving to become not only conscious, but also self-conscious. Self-consciousness is pointing towards recognition.
Gregory, I missed your last word. You said self-consciousness points to something, you said?
Self-consciousness implies recognition.
Recognition. Okay, good. Good. Thank you. Now, to be really, listeners, I want to go slowly in our discussion because there's so much depth to what we are talking about. And when you hear something for the first time, um, it, let's say, of course, you hear it, but it may not land very strongly. And so that's one of the reasons I like to repeat things and to go slowly, um, allowing us to reflect on what we are hearing. And then when you repeat it, hopefully the second time you hear it, there's something more when you hear it, let's say maybe clearer, and you can now go a little bit deeper into it. So something else. Let me just say this is sort of a different question, but let me just put it up now, forward right now. So, Gregory and listeners, we do find certain people, they say they have premonitions. Not everybody has them, and which could be a vision or dream, you could say, visions mostly, where these people see what is going to happen, let's say, in the future. Now that looks for the let's say strange to believe that can happen. Let me give the scenario I'm thinking about, Gregory. We human beings have free will, so we can choose, at any moment if we say we're going this way, we can change our mind at any point and go the opposite way. And then if somebody has had a premonition that this is going to happen, one wonders, well, it could be going to happen, but then it can also, the person who is involved may, how can I say, at the last moment, turn another way. So what I want to ask then, Gregory, there, this premonition that people have, can it be relied on that that will happen? Because, as I said, because of the free will of man, they can change their decision and make their decision at any point.
When that premonition was made, there was no consideration of the path which the individual has embarked on. What generally happens in these matters is only a sensing of the manifestation of certain, what one might refer to, happenings. These happenings will manifest. But how and when, the individual may not know. These manifestations, the sensing of it would have been during one's sleep. It would have been an individual just going on his own and hit by a certain sense or certain impressions. There are so many scenarios when these things do happen. But one thing becomes very clear. It is a sensing that something might happen. But what it is, how it might happen, unless that individual has matured to that extent to have been reflecting along such lines, he or she may not know how that will manifest. It may also be that in the process of that person's reflection, and along the line, in the process of that person's regrets, in the process of feeling guilty and asking for the opportunity to make amends, may well happen that that path which would have led to the manifestation of that particular event, that individual is led to a different path. That is one possibility. The other possibility is that that individual may still proceed along the same path, but in his inner change of state, that which would have caused him or her such terrible difficulties is greatly minimized, such that that person along the line, filled with goodwill, not only for himself but also for others, is greatly protected, and that which would have destroyed him or her does not happen. So the scenarios vary. Much of what one is alluding to, many can also strive to examine for themselves in the walk, in the light of truth, the Grail message of Abraham. There the individual needs to absorb the word or the living word. Let it come to life, not only in deeds, but also in thoughts and also in one's intuitions. And subsequently, many a miracle. That's for certain will manifest itself.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this answer. It was, let's say, the angle that I brought in something new there, premonition, which just to show really that this gift of intuition, it truly is unbelievable, powerful in its range, and certain people, they've, let's say, been guided or gifted. In this case, we talked about premonition, where it is to help fellow human beings, and this is, although it may not look directly related to intuition, there is something. The spiritual, let's say, world has a much higher capability than we can really, how can I say, appreciate, or we don't really appreciate, let's say. But the more effort we put in, as Gregory has been, pointing to, if we put the effort to pick up the Grail message in the light of truth by Akushin, a lot of knowledge is being given there about these, you could call it in quotes, mysteries of life, or the workings of life, where, let's say, we know these things happen, but we don't understand the process and why. And yet, everything that happens in life can be explained because it is a process. Just we need to know what is the process, what is the structure, how it works, and so on. And that will require an effort from our side to go into it. But we would need, let's say, to have a framework and that sort of understanding to explore it in a thorough way and understand it in a deeper way. So thanks for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, I want to just remind you, you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge, the Grail message in the light of truth by Abdushi. If you wish to know more about the Grail message, then or you wish to buy a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is awake and become seen. Awake and become seen. If you have any questions or comments, please contact us on our UK number, which begins with the prefix +44 79 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. I'll just repeat the number. It's +44 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. There's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll come across a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And you can also listen to us on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail message, space the topic for tonight, which is awake and become seen. And when the show ends, which is 8 p.m. UK time, you can listen to a recording of this show also on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space Grail message, space awake and become seen. Of course, you can listen to the recording of our previous shows as well, also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.fm/radio/Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there. Now, Gregory, listeners, let's look at, how well we are applying this gift of the intuition that we've been discussing, in our, you could say, daily life. So, Gregory, I think, listeners, I'm sure this word intuition you are familiar with, but let's say, how much are we using it? How much are we trusting it or listening to it? That's the question. So, Gregory, please, can you help us? Are we using the intuition, the human beings, in a, let's say, effective way? or then of course I know there's humanities of different variety, but yes, in general, we human beings, are we using our intuition in an effective way?
Yeah. Thanks for this particular question. And the question one repeats here is, are we using our intuition in an effective way? There are some who are able to pick up the right impression. That means the impression that comes from their back brain. Some may refer to this as gut feeling. They do not have any reason. Whereas that which is not of intuition, which many may refer to as that of one's earthly reasoning faculty, that's again, they have a reason. That which is of intuition, many a time, the individual only has a flash of light without a reason behind it. Whereas that which is intellectual first rationalizes a reason behind something. So, subsequently, many will then realize that that which is of spirit, which activities of the spirit has generated one's intuition, in that particular scenario, again and again, the individual then needs to verify that the solutions it has provided are consistent with the laws of nature, with the creative laws, and these solutions are far seeing than the narrow sphere which the individual engages in with the everyday activities. Should an individual in his or her activities engage in that which is noble, engage in that which is helpful, which is of benefit, engage in that which supports all, in the case of one for all and all for one, then the reciprocal activity, because that individual did not do any calculation of receiving benefits, the benefits which will accrue from out of creation, from those who are more matured, who stand at a higher level, those benefits will be first and foremost intuitive. In that case, you will find that the individual does not have any reason to have warranted such benefits, but it has arrived. If that individual is humble enough, if that individual wishes to be factual, if that individual wishes to be humble in such a way that he becomes continually of benefit, not only to himself but to others. Before too long, a way will be opened, which path it needs to follow, without having to think first, but following that path will bring many a benefit. That was what the disciples of Christ did when they started. Many a person know of Peter, many a person know of Paul. The same thing happens with basically all the prophets. Many of them who have been prepared only reflected deep within themselves without trying to find any intellectual reason behind their activities, and they were well guided. The more one thinks less of one's importance, the better it is.
Thanks again, Gregory, for this answer. And what it shows is that we really, the let's say the path of this us human beings, it really is depend on our efforts and in the direction we take. It's we have to recognize who we are, that we are a spirit living on this earth in this physical body, and yes, we have the five senses, earthly senses, and also we have this intuition, which is a real gift from the Almighty to help guide us and to direct us to our purpose, to our fulfill our potential, as one of my fellow colleagues was saying, Mrs. Hoppe. So, but Gregory, as we started early in the show, this becoming seeing or awake rather, it's about consciousness. So, and then this consciousness, the level of that consciousness is in reference related to our maturity, you see. So the true journey of the human being is becoming conscious, and you say become seeing, becoming conscious. However, as Gregory had mentioned in this part of the in this show as well, in other shows in the past, there's one thing more: becoming self-conscious. So conscious and then self-conscious. So there's another step there. I would say most of us are aware that we are conscious of ourselves because we know that we exist. But then, as Gregory also mentioned earlier about maturity, so there's a level of maturity. Again, you could say we start at a low level of maturity, and then of course the idea is to become fully mature. So this becoming fully mature, again, we need to be aware of that. Otherwise, we'll just be happy with, okay, we've done this, I achieved this in my life, and that's it. And I'm happy with that. So yes, on the surface that looks fine, but with your, let's say, spirit being awakened, it will say, is that all? enjoy my earth life? Is that it? Or is there something beyond this earth life? So these, how can I say, prompts that are gently touching our heart or clicking on our heart, whatever the word is, are there. Gregory, maybe we should say something about this. So, we have thoughts of words in our mind speaking to us. Do this, do that. The intuition, how can we say, recognize the intuition compared to these other words that come in our mind? You have a problem and then say, maybe I should try this, maybe I should try that. And then next day some other thoughts will come. So how can we, and we're saying the intuition is the real guide for us that we're supposed to listen to. So how can we know when it is the intuition talking to us rather than some thought? Well, I don't want to use the word thought, because you can say it comes as a voice sometimes. Do this idea or that idea. So how can we tell when it is intuition talking?
In the walk in the life of truth, the intuition has been defined scenario of a picture without words. So you have the flashing of a picture without words tied to it. However, the individual can only gain personal conviction, not casual activities, but personal conviction when it has experienced it again and again. It has followed the path that the picture points. Every picture is a pointer. The challenge when intuition is referred to is that many an individual only wish to proceed along that path in which there are no challenges, in which there is no stress. Whereas that which is intuitive, that has provided that sharp picture, the individual must be bold enough, must make the necessary effort to proceed along that path. Only then, when it has gone along that path and has found that it has been beneficial through the effort it's made in following that picture, for that picture being a pointer, now hasn't gone through that path. Now it knows that yes, it is. Not once, not twice, but on several occasions. Then and only then, through such activities, does it have personal conviction, such that when there is a flash or a particular type of gut feeling, it knows the path it needs to follow.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for that. I just saw a text message from a listener giving a comment. It says, awaken to the peace that passes all understanding, the peace of paradise, the peace the seeker so longs for, the longing to be free, the key of heaven, to be perfect like your Father in heaven. So I'll just repeat that. Awaken to the peace that passes all understanding, the peace of paradise, the peace the seeker so longs for, the longing to be free, the key of heaven, to be perfect like your Father in heaven. That's perfect as human beings, of course. So yes, thank you, listener, for that comment. And now I like to read, as I like to do from in every radio show, from the foreword of the Grail message, which is titled "For Your Guidance." The bandage falls, and belief becomes conviction. Liberation and redemption lie only in conviction. I'm addressing earnest seekers only. They must be able and willing to examine this matter objectively. Religious fanatics and irresponsible enthusiasts may hold aloof, for they are detrimental to the truth. As for the malevolent and prejudiced, they shall find their sentence in the very words. The message will strike only those who still carry within them a spark of truth and the yearning to be true human beings. To all such it will become the shining light and star. It will lead them unswervingly out of all the chaos of the present-day confusion. The following word does not bring a new religion, but it is intended as the torch to help all serious listeners or readers find the right path, which leads them to the longed-for height. Only he who bestirs himself can advance spiritually. The fool who uses extraneous aids for this, in the form of ready-made opinions of others, only walks his path as if on crutches, while ignoring his own healthy limbs. But the moment he boldly uses all the abilities which lie dormant within him, awaiting his call to help in his ascent, he is employing the talent entrusted to him in accordance with his Creator's will, and will easily overcome all obstacles that seek to divert him. Therefore awake. Genuine faith lies only in conviction, and conviction comes solely through an inflexible weighing and examining. See that you're truly alive in the wonderful creation of your God. Akrishna. And dear listeners, if you wish to know more about the Grail message, or want to get a copy of the Grail message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And hopefully, listeners, you've enjoyed the discussion tonight on Awake and Become Seen. So I'm just going to ask Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing listeners a beautiful week ahead.
Thank you. Same from me. Have a beautiful week ahead, listeners. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time with another topic. Take care.